I wanted to give a quick update on what's happening in the greater East Bay housing market. Just as we look at the data, there's all this noise in the press about what's going on with rates, and everybody's not transacting anymore. People are not selling, or when properties are on the market, they're not moving. And there's some truth to all of these statements, but it really depends on the context. So, one metric I like to look at is how long are properties staying on the market? Because here in the Bay Area, we're used to a market where homes go under contract within 14 to 18 days of hitting the market. So basically 2 weekends of open houses or 2 weekends on the market. So what's interesting is if you look 12 months back, we had 21 days as our median midpoint, and now that's up to 31 days. So yes, things are definitely moving slower. But then if you take a look at pending list count, so these are homes that are going under contract. If you look a year back, so we had 1,900 homes under contract in May of 2024, and we have just under 1,900 homes under contract this past May. So fairly flat compared to last year. You've got your typical seasonality in the housing market that's reflected in these charts, but there are still transactions happening. People still need to move. There's still demand and supply that facilitates the housing market. We're just not used to seeing the crazy appreciation that everybody experienced during the pandemic. And that's what a lot of people are reacting to. So if you look at list prices are essentially flat year over year. Here you had 899, and again, this is a very gross and rough average. There's obviously very high price points in the greater East Bay, but we're just looking at the medians. So you got 899 a year ago, and you got basically 899 this year. So our market is not crashing. Property values are definitely not in a free fall. People are just a lot more cautious about thinking through this very large transaction and transition in their lives. Looking though at new inventory. So new listing count is something that I like to look at. Again, we were at 2532 a year ago, and this May we're still in the 2500 range for homes on the market. So no, there's not all this inventory sitting out there not selling. Things are definitely moving slower with our median days on market at 31, as I'm showing here. But by no means are we in a housing recession. We're just very used to the Bay Area moving at such rapid speeds, and people are more cautious. Buyers are definitely a lot more sensitive in the quality and what they're willing to tolerate for housing than what was the case during the pandemic, where people overbidding substantially and were willing to do major renovations on their own dime. People are now expecting homes to be much more market ready and done up with cosmetic work already done for them, especially given the rate environment that we've continued to operate in. Here's where the media talks about what's happening in the market and people believe that we're crashing. Number of homes with price reductions. There are stats in the media that talks about 1 in every 5 homes taking a price reduction. And it is absolutely true that if you look at last year, we had under 900 price reductions in the month of May, or homes with those attributes. And this May, we've got just under 1,500 homes with price reductions. So what this means is sellers and their agents have had to adjust to the new market realities where buyers are more particular. They're not jumping over a home as soon as it gets listed. And the listing pricing strategies that worked during the pandemic doesn't work anymore. What sellers are used to seeing is my neighbor sold for 1.5 million, I'm going to list at 1.55 million. That doesn't work in the current market. We have to temper people's expectations on list prices. Because the market on the sell side is still catching up with that new reality, we are seeing a lot more homes with price reductions. It does not mean homes are being listed significantly below the levels of last year. It's simply just a correction in the pandemic strategy where we would keep increasing listing prices. We're not in that market right now. The other statistic that's interesting too is just to see the months of inventory. So this is a metric that explains how many months worth of home inventory we have on the market. We were at 1.5 months of inventory last year, and we're around 1.4 to 1.5 this year. So essentially flat. For context, during the pandemic, the Greater East Bay was at half a month worth of inventory. So inventory is up substantially compared to the pandemic period, but very normal for pre-pandemic housing market statistics. For context, to be in what's called a buyer's market, this number needs to move closer to 6 months. And as you can see, we're pretty far from that at this point in time. So it's really important to just have the context for what these numbers mean so that when you read the news articles, you'll have proper context. I do want to invite you to reach out to me for questions if you have anything specific you'd like to cover here.